Like most of us getting fatter and sicker, the Bredens might be forgiven their nutritional ignorance. But the food industry has known and discussed links between processed food and disease for decades. It was Minneapolis, 1999. Obesity was only an emerging problem back then when the heads of America's biggest food companies arrived for a rare meeting. Among them, the heads of Kraft, Nabisco, Nestle, Coca-Cola, and General Mills.
These are executives who normally are fighting each other for space on the grocery store. They don't get together very often, but in '99, they got together to talk about obesity.
Reporter and author Michael Moss. He described the Minneapolis meeting in his best-selling book.
And they had been pulled together by a cabal of insiders within the industry who had increasingly become concerned about both the industry's responsibility for and culpability for being blamed for obesity.
They gathered at the Pillsbury Company headquarters, 31st floor. The message they got was uncompromising. And it was delivered by two of their own, Michael Mudd, a top executive at Kraft, and Jim Hill, a leading nutrition researcher. In a slide presentation obtained by the Fifth Estate, the two men gave it to the bosses straight.
A national epidemic.
There were too many warnings, Mudd told them, before drawing a parallel designed to make them uncomfortable. Tobacco companies had recently settled a massive lawsuit in face of evidence their product caused disease. Did the food industry, he asked, want to be next?
If anyone in the food industry ever doubted there was a slippery slope out there, I imagine they're beginning to experience a distinct sliding sensation right about now.
Graphics drove home the point. Maps showing obesity rates rising and spreading across the country like a rash.
What are the health implications of all this? Studies show that obese individuals are at a higher risk of developing chronic diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, and cancer.
Topping the list of contributing factors, the ubiquity of inexpensive, good-tasting, supersized, energy-dense foods. In other words, the very foods the CEOs were in charge of selling. The two men were hoping for money to study the link between food and obesity. Instead, they got a tongue lashing, starting with Stephen Sanger, the head of General Mills.
He was rather furious at Mudd for bringing this to them and blaming them for this. And his defense was, look, we already offer consumers a choice. If they want low-fat this or low-sugar that, we have those products in the grocery store. We feel we're already being responsible both to consumers from a health perspective, but also to Wall Street.
In other words, they didn't want to know. Now, it's one thing to silence troublesome voices in their own companies. Michael Mudd eventually left the food industry out of frustration. But the people who profit from sugar have proven themselves very adept at crushing dissenting voices everywhere, including in the halls of science.